Monica. I'm an educator working in early childhood, and you're listening to the podcast Learning Through Play. Today's topic is about the meaning of arts within a preschool setting, and we're very fortunate to have a guest speaker on the show. She is an early childhood teacher who has a great understanding in today's topic. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you, so excited to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now today we're talking about the meaning of learning through the arts. For our listeners, have a think about what art means to you, but more importantly, what do you think about when you hear the word art? Now there is a huge significance and meaning when it comes to the arts. To me, when I think of the word art, I link it to having a significant influence towards preschoolers within their play. Now, Nicola, using your professional experience and your understanding, could you provide maybe some extensive knowledge of the meaning of arts other than just the basic meaning of craft?
The arts is the form of expression of creativity and imagination. When natures of art such as dance, media, drama, music, and visual arts are applied through play in a learning environment, this becomes fundamental as children discover and become innovative thinkers. When children are innovative thinkers, they are open to the experience of new ideas, researching, experimenting, and finding new techniques to do things, problem solve, imagine, create, and taking risks. In theory, the arts has a connection with our lives. Gunilla Lindqvist, a Swedish scholar, stated this in an article when she referred to a theorist named Lev Vygotsky and the theory of creativity. It is the realistic thought and emotions transported into the arts which what makes art realistic. Vygotsky also stated as well, with using your thinking of reality and authentic experiences, it is possible to be creative without a certain part of imagination. Whereas Jean Piaget, another theorist, stated using your thoughts means having the ability to invent and create, which influences upon your imagination.
All those points sound exactly like what children learn in their development through play. For the parents listening, this is linked to the early years learning framework and the Australian curriculum. The early years emphasises the arts through and within a play-based approach. Children's learning is focused and influenced upon an inquiry and discovery, which is important with their sense of agency, their identity, well-being and curiosity. They become more confident and involved learners using the 5 arts of dance, music, visual arts, media and drama.
As children transition into school, the arts do inspire and enhance all students by thrilling imagination and encouraging them to reach their communicative and creative abilities.
So arts is an education.
Yeah.
Children learn many aspects of their development within using the arts. Referring to the Convention on the Rights of Children, Articles 28 and 29 combined, actually state that children have a right to an education, and they have rights to join in experiences that encourages their development of their capabilities, personalities, and their skills. Unfortunately, there are some ongoing contemporary concerns which hold the arts back.
There are anxieties towards children's literacy and numeracy knowledge, towards their readiness of school, of their formal schooling. Interestingly though, Monica, Ken Robinson, who was an expert in education and creativity, mentioned that everywhere in the world, all schools have the same hierarchy of subjects.
So, Monica, I assume literacy and numeracy are at the top and arts on the bottom?
Yes. And then for the arts, visual arts and music will be at the top, so they will be the first. And then it's dance and drama.
I don't think there is any teaching methods where you teach dance or drama every day the way you teach mathematics or literacy.
No.
So, Nicola, you mentioned art as a creative expression. So how do you suggest the term communication? What is a way for the arts to be the communication language for young preschoolers?
There is a pedagogy called Reggio Emilia and the use of 100 languages.
That sounds very familiar, Nicola. I do know about Reggio Emilia, which is a powerful teaching strategy focusing on fostering the image of a child and promoting the fact that all children have potential within their developments and learning through all subject areas using 100 languages.
The meaning of 100 languages is learning through 100 different ways in many forms of expression, which belongs to everyone. Considering language in many different ways other than verbal, children have numerous approaches of articulating themselves through understanding, relating to others, and ways of thinking that creates connections between their various experiences with the arts.
This also does acknowledge children's imagination and creativity in their development, while having potential to construct knowledge in many diverse ways. So, when we look at the 100 languages and arts as significant in children's learning and development, it encourages children's thinking and perform in ways which increases their motivation, self-esteem, support, and enhances their preparation for their future. So, Nicola, what have you noticed in your learning environment when it comes to arts shown as a language, communication, or used with 100 languages?
It is about how children explore their creative environment to express themselves using their multiple ways of language, and how you help children model their ways of learning within teaching strategies. My educators and I highlight children's personal expressions and competencies on reflecting upon their patterns of thinking and their symbolic representation, which is a way of how resources are used as a symbol.
Got a couple of questions because this is very interesting. Was there a time where you assisted their communication when recognizing their thoughts and feelings? There would have to be needed resources or tools, access to support and guide their thinking.
From personal experience, absolutely. I've had children who wanted to role play the Three Little Pigs, which is an example, but the support was the influences of the creative learning environment, and tools were accessible and supported children's thinking. These group of children communicated their needs by requesting for resources and tools in a location where they needed to tell someone to be able to access. Children asked if they could go outside the fence in our playground area where there were many sticks to collect. And as I listened to their reasons and their ideas and followed up upon them, they wanted to make a house of sticks. Another point is when they express their communication with others and not just adults. When children used the cubby house outside and imagined it was made of bricks, they used tools of collaboration in their play by connecting with others. They displayed initiative to explore resources, so when they collected leaves and wanted to paint them yellow and explained it was hay, they were able to access tools as they used paint colours and a variety of paintbrushes with different textures and sizes. This was available to them, easily accessible to get it off the shelf. Paint was also available in its own individual coloured pots, so children had access to grab and open as they please. Also, when they wanted to make masks to demonstrate the characters in the story, using visual arts, they help themselves to our art trolley, which has a variety of tools such as string, hole punches, scissors, coloured paper, pencils, crayons, oil pastels, which is always available to children throughout the day. This helped enhance their information and communication technology tools for designing, composing, and reflecting.
From your experience, it sounds like mentioned how the environment plays a role, and especially having a creative learning environment. Are you able to expand on this?
There are many points to consider when having a creative learning environment. But in the environment you want, it needs to be inclusive. We use arts to explore culture and diversity, such as incorporating a range of music from all over the world. Children will value their own world as well as enjoying the environment for their intellectual thinking, emotional, and social development. And the environment needs techniques where children socialise to build positive relationships, which empowers learning values of trust, creativity, individuality, empathy, confidence, and supporting their emotional well-being. And also, creative environments need to be secure, where relationships with adults are developed. When an adult shows signs of interest in children's creativity through listening and questioning their ideas, this supports relationships to grow.
Expanding on relationships, I guess partnerships with families would be essential as parents are involved in their children's programs. This would guide children's development and motivation, which increases their self confidence in the environment.
And also, children, they still need those tools to access and the variety of resources to enhance their creativity. A great example would be when I engaged children to experience sculpture with clay. I provided a variety of different pottery tools for children to cut, shape, join, and add texture to their sculptures. Like if a child was making a bird, you would want a texture tool provided to make the outline of its wings. Monica, I'm not sure if you heard of loose parts.
Yes, like materials moved, carried, combined, redesigned in many ways.
In the environment, well, in a creative learning environment, what I do is that I have used milk bottle lids, shells, sticks, leaves, pebbles, paddle pop sticks, anything which can create an open-ended experience. It can also be PVC pipes.
Yes, I have children who love using them in the sandpit with water. The fun part is when there is too much sand and water and you can't get it all out because it gets all stuck.
Yes, that happens to me all the time.
But
all the time.
But the kids love it, and it's great because you can see what ideas they come up with.
As they are easy access in baskets inside or in a shed outside where they can collect them at any time, loose parts used in a variety of ways supports their thinking.
I guess when children have ideas, they question with loose parts and also use this as a social experiment with their peers while developing a combination of design, technology, and gross motor skills.
Also, children need time to think and time to play, so they have opportunities to problem solve, reinvent, create, make mistakes, and build connections within their creative environment.
And what about diverse needs?
Children with diverse needs, it could be, maybe those who are on the spectrum. They may need sensory and hand tactile resources to expand on their sensory awareness and expression.
I've heard art is a very effective therapy and support and facilitates sensory modulation or sensory processing, self-regulation, lowering anxiety, improves on social engagements. So do you think the creative environment, they will need a variety of physical hands-on learning such as Play-Doh, clay, kinetic sand?
That would probably support them. And you need different textures to expand on their sensory awareness as well as resources to cater their needs.
Yeah, also with indoor and outdoor spaces, they will need to be inviting, challenging or interesting for children to explore and take initiative for responsibility of their own learning. You will also want an environment where children are independent, learn to collaborate with others and make their own choices.
That is the part of teaching strategies and pedagogy which influences the creative environment. You want to provide children with authentic and real life experiences using arts so children can develop skills they essentially need. A creative environment like this ensures every child is valued and included.
I was going to ask about teaching strategies. You mentioned Reggio Emilia as a teaching strategy. How important is this within the preschool environment? I guess many of our listeners might actually not understand the importance of this.
Oh, it absolutely is. When referring to pedagogy, we refer to the framework, theory, children's rights, our experience and personal beliefs. The importance of teaching strategies plays a role in these aspects as we apply approaches to support children's learning when identifying their strengths, learning styles, and interests. It is the planning experiences which then scaffolds learning promoted through play. A teaching strategy which is very popular is talking to children about their arts. Through my first few years of being an early childhood teacher, I've learnt to not make assumptions and have expectations on children's art.
Makes sense because I've looked at a child's artwork and said, wow, I really like your dog. And she's turned to me and said, it's not a dog, it's a lizard.
Yeah. And also saying, wow, you did that all by yourself shows acknowledgement of their efforts, but it isn't detailed enough for them to reflect on their ideas. So it is beneficial when looking at their elements they've used, which could be shapes, colours, and textures for visual arts.
For dance, it could be physical movement styles that they used and commenting, I like the way you moved like this. While demonstrating it, they might actually say, I was dancing like a puppet.
Yeah, exactly. And describing them will draw children into their reflection about what they have produced.
I've noticed another strategy is the 8 ways of knowing.
Oh, yeah, yes, it is a great pedagogy and a framework for us to include Aboriginal perspectives through using Aboriginal learning techniques. What I've noticed is that I use it every day without realising. One of the 8 ways I use a lot is story sharing. We use yawning, which means talk. Children share personal experiences as a group and tell a narrative as children sit together and they try to imagine using any form of art to share.
I know that when I've used a lot of non-verbal strategies in the past with children, as they share knowledge without words when using arts to convey their communication.
Yeah.
This may be shown by dance or drama to convey a message. I know there's a project called the Teaspoon of Light, which was developed by Christchurch schools in New Zealand.
And during that time, it was devastating. And in 2012 to 2015, with the earthquakes, but what was so impressive was that children use the arts to build resilience and cope with their strengths, and they use the arts to re-engage their learning.
Yeah, I've also used symbols and images, which is very effective within children's creations to convey messages. This was actually very useful for me as I had a non-verbal child who drew to support his communication, which supported his language development.
Yeah, and non-linear or indirect learning strategies is very common as children produce their creations and ideas and their understanding by thinking imaginatively, using tools or combining their techniques.
Yeah, Nicola, what about diverse needs?
Children with diverse needs still need to be inclusive in the environment, which is essential, and strategies such as identifying their capabilities make us as early childhood educators aware of what they are able to do. Another strategy is communicating with families to build partnerships, and they are able to guide their children's learning, decision making, and their interests, so we know what resources and tools they need in their learning environment through the arts. In the past, strategies I have used was visuals to communicate. We displayed visual cards. And this was also incorporating symbols and images within the 8 ways. We used talk as a communication. For example, look at your painting, you did blue dots and yellow swirls, which we wanted to give him that positive acknowledgement and that expression of language, expressing their language development. And also sensory. I mentioned earlier before about creative environments. Provide them opportunities to engage in art and observe how they behave, which helps us identify teaching approaches to their learning.
Then there are children who display strong minds with their creativity.
They need interesting materials to test their boundaries. Teaching strategies such as observing, questioning their ideas, and using inquiry-based approaches when we give feedback, such as, what could you do next? Or what's another way to do it, to expand on their reasoning.
What do you do for assessment strategies when it comes to arts? You've discussed communication when it comes to children expressing and discussing their interests and ideas.
Yeah.
But are there any other strategies? I normally gather information about how children are progressing, which provides a basis for future planning and direction.
And that's what an assessment strategy is. Like in drama, educators take a step back and observe how children are feeling, what they do, how they present their role playing, and how their social aspects and experiences connect with their learning. As drama is a form of acting, children use drama as an art to connect with others, using gestures, signs, sounds, language, and supported communication, as well as being creative and imaginative. We observe these aspects in their play and ask ourselves, what is it that they are presenting? We document what we observe and write it as a social story using a formative assessment grid. We also use the framework of the early years to support our thinking, to record identified learning outcomes we think they possess, and then consider ways we can support further learning. I tell myself, is it something a child said in their play which can be used as an intentional teaching, or what is their understanding when using drama?
So when children role play to go to a pizzeria, are they demonstrating literacy by learning procedures of making a pizza, or are they learning to pay using mathematics by manipulating with money and at the cash register.
And exactly. And you want to know what learning areas they appear to display, which may support their learning or introduce a new concept in their environment. With drawing, children around 4 to 5 years in preschool have the ability to create a picture in their minds and transport their ideas on paper. And the main purpose of drawing is connecting their thoughts and speech into an artistic form.
So signs and symbols might be considered forms of language and a way of communicating, which is part of the 8 ways of knowing, as children use them to understand ideas and their content. Children's drawings are appearances of thinking or a story, and they can relate to in a clear detail. As we use assessment strategies, we identify their imaginary understanding, social engagements, and their emotional communication.
And a child's artwork is a facilitator for conversation, which is an effective way of increasing understanding into their learning. So as an assessment strategy, it's just simply asking your child to tell you about their drawing, which will reveal their thinking and start conversations, which happens naturally throughout the day. We as educators ensure that these conversations promote learning as interactions are built throughout their engagement in the arts and assist their investigations, their decision making and reflections. What I do is I like to document the communication, and with the child's permission, we display their work with that documented communication attached to present and show how the child displays their learning as another form of formative assessment. We also think learning areas they understand, which then supports us to think how we can further this learning. The idea that they have presented through drawing, we then use that idea to introduce a new concept into the creative environment to have that ongoing learning cycle.
Yeah. I guess when a child lets you display their work, they feel satisfied and they accept that they have expressed their thoughts, which is fantastic. Nicola, just wanted to say thank you so very much for joining us today. I know myself and our listeners would have taken a lot from our discussion today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge about the importance of the arts in preschool learning. But Nicola, is there anything you would like to say before concluding our podcast today?
I just want to conclude that the arts feature meaningful and significance in the learning environment and in active play-based learning, which children acquire throughout their early and definitely preschool years.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And thank you to our audience today, especially to those who are parents, caregivers or educators out there. Hope you've learned something out of this discussion and can take something with you. Tune in for next episode of Learning Through Play. Same time next week. I'm your host, Monica. Bye.